let's talk about the architecture, because everyone's happy with the idea it's going to be rebuilt. But sooner or later, we're going to get down to, well, what is going to be rebuilt? I mean, recently I saw a sketch of making the roof, which is the part that burnt away, into a greenhouse and a spire, some kind of green spire. And so that, how should they go about this? Should they just do a literal reconstruction of exactly what was there before?
Yes.
Yes.
Notre Dame is too important for contemporary architects to have a play date with.
Right.
And if they want to experiment with greenhouses and glass spires, I think that's great, but they should do it somewhere else.
But let me just push back a little. Through its history, architects have added things based on their own times that weren't in the original plans, right? I mean,
Yes.
Part of a building is reconstruct. Why different now? Why not now?
So I mean,
how would that be an aberration if people say, well, we know some things they didn't know and we're going to use that?
Yeah, and I'm all for adding to buildings and that buildings live so we can add or improve or change them. But it should be done in respect of the building. So it has to be done in a respectful way, the way that Viollet-le-Duc did in the 1860s.
Just explain who he was in the 19th century, did a restoration, right? Partly, I think, provoked by the popularity of Victor Hugo's novel, right?
Hunchback.
That way. So what did he added the spire, but that was controversial when he did it.
A little bit, but one of the things that Viollet-le-Duc did was he was a student of Notre Dame, he was a student of the Gothic, he loved Gothic architecture, studied the construction methods, studied the artistry, and so he did the two biggies that he did were to undo what happened in the Revolution. In 1793, the French revolutionaries asked to destroy all the statuary on the outside of Notre Dame, and they were all busted, all destroyed. So he brought stone carvers to recarve the saints, the prophets, and the kings. And then the other thing was some
of the kings were kings of Judea, right? That were
Yes.
that were confused for being French kings, and
yes,
so.
Right. And the other thing that the French revolutionaries did was the spire was already damaged, but they mutilated it. And we think either they took it down there then or later it was taken down. So the two things that are most striking about what they did.
The spire that he put up?
So the original spire was about 100 feet tall above the roof. So that makes it about 250 feet tall. And what Viollet-le-Duc did basically was take the same shape, an octagon, at the same axes on the diagonal, and then add a second story to it of arches, and then make it a little bit taller, 150 feet from 100, and then he added some sculpture at the bottom. But I would say it's a very respectful rebuilding of another spire and making it, let's say, more beautiful.
So why do you not have confidence that someone can do the same thing today? Make a more something that's respectful but somewhat different from what they had.
I think there probably are architects out there that could do something respectful that grows out of Notre Dame, but it's unlikely they'll be chosen. It seems like the whole push is to do something 21st century of our time, expressing how different we are than the past, and that's not what Viollet was about.
Right, now you're a classicist. Does your objection extend to materials? For example, some people are saying, would they use timber for the support of the roof today, or would they use more fire-resistant material or something, since that was inside,
yes,
and it could look the same on the outside? Are you opposed to that kind of adjustment?
Well, yes. My first thought was that's what they'll do, and that's fine. But the more you study it, you realize that Viollet-le-Duc and others who love the Gothic architecture study the stone construction and the wood construction. And believe it or not, Notre Dame is famous. The roof of Notre Dame is actually famous for the wood construction as early work to span 42 feet. And at the angle that it actually has some very innovative things. So when Viollet did it in the 19th century, he learned from that and made modifications. He didn't rip it out and start fresh.
Right.
And he knew about iron, he knew about modern construction of the time, but he said, no, let's learn from that. I think that's very exciting to learn from